In today's video, where have condo prices dropped the most in downtown Toronto when we compare prices in the month of June versus peak market conditions? Let's get to it. Hello everyone, this is Sam from SaberiSixRealEstate and Remax Realtron Realty Inc. Welcome back to another video. If you're new to the channel, on this channel we like to discuss all things Toronto real estate, market oriented, market stats, prices, trends and statistics, buyer and seller advice. If you find this content informative, feel free to subscribe. You can furthermore find my contact information on the screen and in the description box. If you have any further questions and you would like to get in touch with me, that's where you can find my Gmail and my office information, and where you can also find me on different social media platforms as well. Lastly, if you want to do a little bit of your own due diligence and homework before you do get in touch with me, feel free to just simply enter my name into Google, find my Google reviews, go through them and see the feedback of those who have worked with me in the past and continue to work with me, see what that feedback has been like. Anyways, enough of all that self-promotion. Let's get to the point of today's video, which is downtown Toronto condo prices. Where have condo prices in the downtown Toronto area fallen the most? Well, all we really have to do is just refer to this bar graph I created for my clients. And here we see a comparison between peak market conditions and prices as they were in June of 2022. This is being recorded July 4th. Now, March was really the month where Toronto condo prices, specifically with regards to the downtown Toronto condo market, peaked, whereas February was more so the peak for all property types across all areas. Now here we're looking at average sold prices across all condo types, accounting from studios to 3-bedroom penthouses. And as a result, for some of the smaller areas, some of the smaller communities here where there isn't a lot of inventory, we have less sales data to go based upon, and that can throw off the averages. Once again, as a result, I excluded some areas where there were less than 7 transactions, because at that point, really, 1 month you might have a $3 million penthouse that sells, and the next month not really. And of course, that's going to vastly impact the averages. Nonetheless, we have a lot of communities to go through, starting out with where really prices fell the most in terms of a downtown Toronto condo community, which is Bay Street corridor. As we see here, the average sold price was at $1,070,000 in March of 2022. Now in June of 2022, prices have fallen in Bay Street corridor all the way down to $832,000. Now, what happened in February, March, and really even going all the way back to November of 2021, the run up to the peak market conditions in February and March here, of obviously, but once again with regards to condos, March, what happened to the run up was a return to the offices, a return to the city core. And even to this day, when we look at freeholds, central Toronto has performed less worse than the suburbs, not better, because central Toronto is somewhat still down 1 to 3%, but not nearly as down as the suburbs of York Region, Durham, and Peel. Well, the reason for that is the return to the offices, return to city life is still a motivating factor. Nonetheless, things really climaxed with particularly downtown Toronto condos in Bay Street around February and March, in conjunction obviously with a larger backdrop of historically lower interest rates and a very hot, vibrant seller's market, completely opposite to what we have in today's market at the time of recording of this video, and honestly since April and May. Where prices fell the least is in Niagara, according to these average prices here. And if you're not familiar with where Niagara is, or any of these areas for that matter, you can refer to the link in the description box where it will take you to the treb maps. These are treb designated communities in downtown Toronto. Niagara resides in southwestern downtown Toronto. For instance, some of the major intersections are Bathurst and King. And I guess the biggest cluster of condos that reside in Niagara are the Liberty Village condos, the Liberty Village developments. Here we see on an average basis, prices have only fallen $10,000. But to begin with, in sharp contrast to, for instance, when we were talking about Bay Street just before, the average price at peak market conditions was around $793,000 as opposed to Bay Street, where it was, above $1 million. And for the longtime viewers of this channel and my clients who I obviously work with, and they ask my opinion, you guys should know that I'm not the biggest fan of Liberty Village condos. I believe most of them to be at best average to most often mediocre or below average builds. And a lot of the buildings are not well planned either, particularly once again, just within the Liberty Village community. And of course, it's not just within the middle price point ranges that we see a drop in prices. If we go to the annex, which represents often the highest prices in terms of average sold prices in downtown Toronto for condos, we see at peak market condition, the prices in the annex were at 1.2 million. Of course, in June of 2022, where things have come down more, interest rates have increased, there are less buyers available in the market, but inventory has not calmed down at all. Inventory has actually, depending on what area you look, at worst stayed even, most often increased. Well, as a result, prices have dropped all the way down to $1,129,000 for the annex. By far, what has been the healthiest though is C1 waterfront. Now, if you don't once again know what C1 refers to here, that is just basically realtor speak. You can find the link in the description box with regards to the maps. But pretty much C1 waterfront designates central downtown Toronto waterfront to a little bit of the western portion. However, as to why I say it's performed the best as opposed to what we just covered, for instance, in the case of Niagara, where the drop was only 10,000, here the drop is more, right? The drop is from $885,000 in peak market conditions to $816,000. Nonetheless, even though the drop is more, I would say it has performed better than most communities, because that is where I still see out of every single area in downtown Toronto for condos, competition amongst buyers. Of course, the competition is not nearly to the level it was once again in peak market conditions around March and February. Nonetheless, if we take it within the context of today's market and comparing it to the neighboring communities that we're covering in this video within downtown Toronto, if a listing comes onto the market for bidding and actually manages to sell at bidding, which is a rare occurrence nowadays for condos, it's most likely going to be in the C1 waterfront community in the downtown core. Another area where prices have fallen considerably so is Regent Park, going from $998,000 in terms of average sold prices all the way down to $848,000 in June of 2022. However, here's some important context, because as always, when I represent these numbers to you, I go through transaction by transaction in terms of what makes up these averages. And what happened in March of 2022 with regards to Regent Park was an abnormal amount of $1.1 million sales that kind of carried up the average. This is not to make excuses for Regent Park. Of course, even devoid of those transactions, it would still represent a decline closer to what we have here, as opposed to maybe as low as $10,000 to $20,000 as we saw with Niagara. So this is not to make excuses for Regent Park. It's just simply to say it's not as bad as it looks. But longtime viewers of this channel know, in sharp contrast to my views on Liberty Village, my views on Regent Park, which I believe to be one of the most underrated areas in downtown Toronto, or Toronto proper, really. I really do believe it represents a great growth. And I have been consistently saying that for the last 8 to 12 months, making sales in Regent Park, seeing firsthand the potential the community really has, and according to the numbers as well. Now, touching quickly on Trinity Bellwoods, here we see that when the market was at its peak for downtown Toronto condos in March of 2022, it was selling at 1.6 on an average basis. Obviously now down to sub 1 million, just shy of 1 million. Now that can surprise a lot of people, and to provide a little bit more context on Trinity Bellwoods there. Trinity Bellwoods has a lot of lofts. You actually have a lot more lofts in Trinity Bellwoods as compared to regular old condominium units. And lofts, of course, due to their size, usually sell for much more. Although I am obviously a huge fan of Trinity Bellwoods for other reasons, and there's a lot of pros to go through for Trinity Bellwoods. Nonetheless, the average sold prices will always naturally be higher because of the quantity of lofts that usually get transacted in Trinity Bellwoods. Nonetheless, even despite that, due to larger, more macro market conditions, once again, a shift to a buyer's market, which I have discussed ad nauseum in the past, go watch those videos, Well, prices in Trinity Bellwoods are down as well. And here we see, once again, to reiterate, from 1.16 to just shy of $1 million in terms of June 2022. Now, despite the falling condo prices in downtown Toronto, and of course overall as well, as I have covered in the past across all property types, but let's stick to downtown Toronto here. Despite that, the Toronto condo market in terms of rents has been making a strong recovery. I've covered this as well in my previous videos, to the point where Toronto condo rents are up 24%. So this doesn't do much for a lot of end users who currently own and are worried about their property's value and market value. Nonetheless, for the landlords out there, especially for the landlords on variable rates, well, this increase of rents in the rental market helps to alleviate a lot of the anxiety that may exist. In fact, downtown Toronto condos has been the hotbed, the epicenter of the hot, vibrant rental market that we're seeing all over. Simply put, the rental market is really headed in the opposite and inverse direction that the purchase and sale market is headed and has been headed for a couple of months. Now, it will be very interesting to see if condo rents catch up to the increase in monthly that a lot of Toronto condo investors are dealing with. Anyways, let me know if you have any further questions about topics covered in this video or any other previous videos. As always, thanks for tuning in. Feel free to get in touch with me if you have any further questions about topics covered in this video, or if you have any real estate matters you need help with. As always, this is Sam from SaberiSixRealEstate, Remax Realtron Realty Inc. Thank you very much for watching. Stay safe and stay tuned. Thank you.